Today is Palm Sunday and I'm here in the historic city of Glasgow meeting the people who put their Christian faith to work serving others. Welcome to Songs of Praise. During these unprecedented and very difficult times for our country, many of us are depending on our faith in God. So on the programme today, which we recorded a few weeks ago, I hear how this magnificent cathedral in the heart of the city plays a vital role in the spiritual lives of Glaswegians.
Because we're right next to the Royal Infirmary in Glasgow, we find that there are a lot of people who are there who are looking for a place of comfort, a place of solace.
The 100-year-old mission that doesn't just offer food to the homeless, but gives haircuts, access online and healthcare. And how one Glasgow artist has reimagined the centuries-old gospel using the faces of the city today.
I guess I always had Matthew chapter 25 in the back of my head when Jesus said, "Whatever you did for the least of these, you did for me."
Palm Sunday marks the beginning of Holy Week, when Christians remember the last days of Jesus' life, leading to his resurrection on Easter Sunday, which is celebrated in our first hymn. Here is the congregation of the cathedral here in Glasgow, singing "Rejoice, the Lord is King." Standing in the heart of the old medieval city, Glasgow Cathedral dominates the skyline. There's been a place of worship here for over 1,000 years, and this enduring symbol of Christianity continues to serve the spiritual needs of its citizens today. For the current minister of the cathedral, the Reverend Mark Johnston, the week leading to Easter Sunday has a very special significance.
Do you know, Holy Week is really central to the Christian year. We often think it's Advent, but let's think about Holy Week. One of the dangers is that we focus on Palm Sunday and Easter, and we forget the passion of Christ, which is Jesus' journey towards the cross, ultimately his death, and Easter his resurrection, but ultimately his suffering upon the cross. So that journey that we make during Holy Week, we really need to remember, even on Palm Sunday, perhaps it becomes a trigger as Passion Sunday for many of us.
The term passion comes from the Latin word meaning to suffer and reminds us of Jesus' sacrifice and the trials of Holy Week. An important part of the week's worship here at the cathedral is conducted in the lower church at the tomb which is said to hold the remains of the city's patron saint, St Mungo.
Folks gather round that tomb in the lower church and we celebrate Holy Communion together, reminding us of Jesus meeting with his disciples in the upper room. That's the evening he broke bread and he poured a cup and he shared with those that he drew near to himself. But equally, he drew near to those who would even betray him.
And what about the people who come to this cathedral and worship?
They're ordinary folk. They come from lots of different walks of lives. But because we're right next to the Royal Infirmary in Glasgow, which is one of the largest hospitals in the city, we find that there are a lot of people who are there who maybe have had some life-changing news offered to them, and they're looking for a place of comfort, a place of solace. We have folk who are seeking some kind of spiritual consolation in the midst of their life. So downstairs in the lower church, we have the nurses' chapel, and we'll have medical staff who come in to find an opportunity to reflect and pray. But we equally have a prayer chapel where folk can write prayer requests. We will bring these to the chapel upstairs and we will offer prayer after our main diet of worship.
One member of the medical profession who has a long-standing relationship with the cathedral is resident organist, Dr. Malcolm Sim. Now, you're an intensive care doctor.
I am, yes.
Is faith rare in the medical profession?
No, I don't think it is. I think faith is quite strong in the medical profession. Not all doctors and nurses will necessarily come to church every Sunday morning, but I think in their own way, a lot of doctors and nurses have quite a strong faith. So in my role as an intensive care medicine doctor, occasionally when people are very sick, sadly, there's nothing more that modern medicine can do. And if you've ever seen somebody a few minutes after they die, and there's something that has gone, you can't really explain in terms of atoms and molecules that their soul or something otherworldly.
It really is a special building. When you walk into the cathedral, how does it make you feel?
Oh, I get a buzz every time I come in here. There's no two ways about it. If you imagine sitting up here on a Sunday morning with the congregation singing loudly the magnificent For Manuel Father Willis organ blasting off, the sun streaming through the windows, it gives you a feeling like none other. And in many ways, music can express what words can't. We're obviously on the build-up to our two big services on Easter Sunday. We get to sing some marvellous hymns, for example, Thine Be the Glory, and another favourite of the congregation is Will You Come and Follow Me?
As well as serving the needs of its congregation, Glasgow Cathedral makes a big contribution to the running of community support services and also provides volunteers. One organisation that benefits from this support is the Lodging House Mission. Since we filmed there, the mission has temporarily had to close its doors due to the pandemic. But the regulars are being provided for in some of the many other centres available to the homeless in Glasgow. The mission offers its users much more than just a hot meal, as I found out when I met Gus Smeaton, who's worked at the mission on a voluntary basis for over 6 years. What type of services do you offer?
We have a shower facility, a pharmacy, advice. We even do free haircuts. We have a dentist comes in once a month and actually pulls teeth on the premises. We have a foot clinic every second Tuesdays. We treat people on a one-to-one basis, that we don't put them in pigeonholes. We're dealing with broken lives here and we're trying to restore their dignity.
And you also offer use of computers, don't you?
We have this phrase, digital exclusion, because nowadays someone on universal credit, everything is done on a computer, and they can sit down and use the computer themselves, or we will help them get through universal credit. The experts that we have in this place have been brought in particularly through our experience of knowing the requirements of our guests.
Spiritual needs are also high on the list of priorities here, as the mission's chaplain, Claire Herbert, explains.
So this is our beautiful art room space that we've got, and we do a monthly service in here with our guests, something that we started back in July and hope to do more often.
Yeah, it's a beautiful, positive space, isn't it?
Yes.
And do many of the guests, when they come here, ask about faith? Are they inquisitive?
Yeah, because we are a mission, and many of them understand that to be a Christian mission, they seek us out knowing the kind of support that a Christian mission would give. Some might be angry with God and have taken a step back from their faith, and some have never been introduced to a relationship with God. So we have to just find out where they are at and how to work with that and what level they're comfortable with.
One guest who's found a connection to God through visiting the mission is Anne.
15 years ago, when my father died, I just tossed God aside. I didn't want to know God, because I blamed God for my father dying. But then, when I started to come here, I was like, well, it was me God that made my father die. It was cancer, my mother died with it, I've had 3 brothers died. So it was me God. And now I do believe quite a lot about God.
Quite often what we'll do is gather around the tables for lunch or breakfast. We have free food here, and that acts as a gateway to the community. So it's our form of communion, really.
I started coming here in 2002 because I needed that fellowship with the Salvation Army closing. I came here, and the staff have never changed in that. They've always been very helpful, very sincere, very genuine and true.
I would love to work myself out of a job, not to still be needed in 110 years from now, that we do not need to have homelessness tackled across this city, that actually we respect every individual and they have a right to a safe home and a community in which they can be able to flourish as full citizens. And that's our Christian aspiration, I always.
Time now for some exciting news for all gospel music fans. We're launching our 2020 Gospel Choir of the Year competition. Entry is now open for the competition, which we hope will be filmed in late October. And even though you may not be able to get together to rehearse for some time, please do take the opportunity to register now. The relevant details can be found on our website, bbc.co.uk/Songs of Praise, along with the all-important terms and conditions and privacy notice. The closing date for entries at present is Sunday the 26th of July. 5 choirs will be chosen to compete in the televised final, which is a great opportunity to showcase your choir's talents.
The word gospel means good news, and if you are a gospel choir, that means you've got something to say to the nation, and there's no better medium to say it than really on television to millions of people. Really, it's just a celebration of all that's going on in the UK, the different types of gospel singing that happens in the UK. So your choir needs to be there.
And here's one of the previous winners of the competition, Shalom Chorale from London, performing at Victoria Hall in Bolton.
I'm gonna ride the chariots in the morning, Lord. Ride the chariots in the morning, Lord. I'm getting ready for the judgment day, my Lord, my Lord. Ride the chariots in the morning, Lord. Ride the chariots in the morning, Lord. I'm getting ready for the judgment day, my Lord, my Lord. Are you ready, my brother? Oh yeah. For the chariots, cause I'm ready to go. I'm gonna ride the chariots in the morning, Lord. Ride the chariots in the morning, Lord. I'm getting ready for the judgment day, my Lord, my Lord. Ride the chariots in the morning, Lord. Ride the chariots in the morning, Lord. I'm getting ready for the judgment day, my Lord, my Lord. Are you ready, my sister? Oh yeah. For the chariots, cause I'm ready to go. Riding the chariot to see my Lord. 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 Ride the chariots in the morning, Lord.
Palm Sunday is the day we commemorate Jesus' descent from the Mount of Olives down into the city of Jerusalem, where he was greeted by a crowd who laid palm branches in his path. Here's a special performance from the Holy Land by the Songs of Praise Choir of a hymn which celebrates that journey, Ride On in Majesty.
Majesty.
Glasgow's industrial past is still very evident along the banks of the Clyde, but it's also a city with a strong creative identity and is home to the famous Glasgow School of Art. Iain Campbell is an artist who studied there and who's recently completed a series of paintings of the Gospel of St Luke, some of which can be seen in St George's Tron Church in the city centre.
When I became artist in residence, we felt it was important to try and talk with today's people about the message of Jesus and going through each chapter of the Gospel, using today's people in each of the images.
Iain's subjects are all locals, some of them even work in the church's cafe. But for one of the most striking pieces from the collection, The Last Supper, he chose to use a group of homeless men from the City of Glasgow Mission.
With this painting having some of the poorest people in Glasgow as the models, any one of them could really represent Jesus. I guess I always had Matthew chapter 25 in the back of my head when Jesus said, "Whatever you did for the least of these, you did for me."
I think it's so different from the original. It definitely does remind me of modern day. I'm not sure who I would say is Jesus in this painting as compared to Da Vinci's original, but I am drawn to the individual who's isolated from the group, and it makes me wonder why he's so separated from the rest of them.
In my opinion, the shadows in the backgrounds, they almost appear like ghosts. It does give a very uncertain sort of atmosphere.
We live in such a visual culture. I find a lot of people within the church expect the general population to be negative about Christianity. That's not my experience. I find with people engaging with the artwork, they're curious and they want to know more. People are hungry for spirituality.
I think it's very difficult to say which character represents Jesus, because I see Jesus in each one of them. I think the character of the whole image says something about Jesus.
My first impressions was sheer joy that people don't expect to be around the table are there, and that's what the church is about. The ambiguity is not so important for me as the fact that this painting is hanging inside a church and bringing the outside world in, which is where the church should be.
What I really want people to experience when they come in and see the paintings is that they would be curious, that they would leave with more questions than answers. You could see the difference between the way Jesus would use a sermon and Jesus would use a parable. Jesus' parables were his art form, making people more curious. He would tell a story and people would run after him wanting to know more. In the scene which depicts the arrest of Jesus, I wanted to get the sense of what would it be like to be a bystander. We know that Jesus is a good guy when we're reading the story, but if you were walking past seeing someone being arrested, what would you think? With the crucifixion, it's painted across two canvases. One focuses mostly on the face, and then we see on it that on the arm there's this tattoo, and we're jerked out of 2,000 years ago. This is what this model really looked like. The tattoo was there on his arm, and I wanted to paint him as he really is. I hope that people will continue to have that dialogue. They will want to explore faith for themselves through art that they've seen existing already, through art that they would want to create themselves.
Since filming this programme, Glasgow Cathedral has had to close its doors, but it's continuing to stream its Sunday services on the cathedral website. Next week on Easter Sunday, Catherine Jenkins is in Birmingham to hear how God changes lives, and I meet one of the city's famous footballers who's found faith. We leave you with an appropriate hymn for this historic setting, one which celebrates the enduring love of God over many centuries.